Welcome to Castoshi. Today we have a great interview with a technical founder, Neeraj Kashyap, a mathematician who has worked on AI at Google and now runs Moonstream, which builds systems for blockchain based games. And they're doing really well, having transacted over $1 billion since its launch a few months ago. We talk a lot about gaming and the difference between play to earn in traditional games versus crypto gaming, and also how to manage a game economy and how it's similar to managing a country economy, which means defending yourself against attack and theft. We also discuss the future of NFTs, DAOs, and what will happen to 9 to 5 jobs. Enjoy. Welcome, Neeraj. Could you tell us a little bit about what Moonstream does?
Yeah, Moonstream helps people who are building economies on the blockchain manage, secure, and stabilize their economies. So we work mostly with blockchain games, and yeah, we provide them with mechanisms that allow their players to engage with their game mechanics on the blockchain. And for example, consumable items that people can use in game, mini games that people can play in order to earn currency, loot boxes where people can burn currency in order to get in-game items, things like that. Yeah, that's what Moonstream does.
Okay, so is this applications which would connect to crypto via MetaMask or something like that?
Yeah, via a wallet. So the way that most blockchain games work is they usually have an on-chain component, which are the smart contracts and so on that the game you know that the game deals with, and then there's an off-chain component, which is usually a game client or something like that. And then the way that the off-chain component interacts with the on-chain component is through something like MetaMask or other in-game wallets, in-game clients,
Okay.
Web3 clients. Yeah.
Okay, so if someone didn't use your service, what would be the difference? So I'm trying to figure out what the benefit is for companies who would use your service. I mean, what would they have to do if you didn't exist?
If we didn't exist, they would have to implement all of their on-chain economic mechanisms themselves, right? So if they wanted to have, I see a Dungeons and Dragons manual behind you. Like, let's say they wanted to have a
Yes.
healing potion or something like that, they would have to put all the work into implementing the healing potion. Or if they wanted to have a loot box where you get a randomized reward by beating some sort of a boss, they would have to implement the loot box themselves. With Moonstream, what they can do is they can come to Moonstream and they can select, I want to drop this many healing potions into my economy through this storefront, or I want to assign this kind of a loot box as a reward for defeating this boss. And then when a player opens a loot box, well, they have to, we'll randomly assign them this many ERC20 tokens and this many items and so on. Or we'll choose from this list. They can just sort of specify that. They can choose from a menu of those things that they drop into their economies, and then it happens through Moonstream. So basically, instead of having to spend weeks or months implementing the smart contracts and all the connecting code themselves, they can just get that functionality instantaneously into their economy, which improves their economy and improves the experience for their players as well. So,
Okay, so you don't build the user interface for them, but you build an API at the back end, which they call, and you do all the crypto stuff.
yeah,
Okay, cool.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so could you tell us about, so you've said a little bit about the solution. Could you also tell us about your current progress, like how many users you've got and stuff like that, and then
Sure.
what
Yeah,
your future plans?
launched we launched Moonstream in September. We've sort of been steadily growing. We started off with just analytics, on top of what I said about sort of building those economic mechanisms. We also secure the economies that we participate in. So, for example, we have bots which can shut down attacks on those economies and things like that. And that's sort of what we started with. So we started off with the analytics part of our product, and we've grown since there, since September. Uh, as of last week, we've had over $1 billion of value transacted across our platform, across our smart contracts. And we're sort of, our smart contracts and our software is supporting hundreds of thousands of users.
Oh wow, wow. So are they like big game companies or
I mean,
I guess
the
a
big
lot.
game companies on the blockchain look very different than the big game companies, sort of off the blockchain. But yeah, we're working with some large
Could you
projects.
tell us could you unpack that a bit? What do you mean by that?
What I mean is, mainstream gaming companies like, your Microsofts or your EA games of the world, they're like lagging pretty far behind when it comes to implementing interesting mechanisms for players on the blockchain. And you're seeing like the rise of just a new breed or a new generation of gaming companies, which are sort of blockchain first. These are companies that have formed just to build blockchain games. It generally takes like a different set of skills in order to make a successful blockchain game than a successful like AAA game title or something.
That's quite interesting because I mean, I know a lot of gamers, but those gamers, they generally just play games from like EA or
Yeah.
or one of the big companies or Microsoft or PlayStation stuff. Now, I've got my own theory, but why would you say that people have started to migrate? I mean, okay, people in the crypto gaming space, would you say these are new users or these people from traditional gaming? And why are people attracted to crypto gaming instead of, for example, just playing Call of Duty or something like that?
I think it's new users, and I think people are playing these games for different reasons than the people who are playing Call of Duty. Because with crypto gaming, right now we're in this period where every game is basically a play to earn game, which means that people are not necessarily playing the games for entertainment. They're playing the games to actually make money. It's a very different motivation to play a game. When you play Call of Duty, there's no expectation that you're going to be getting paid for your activity. You're playing it probably to relax or to interact with friends and things like that. Um, when you play a play to earn crypto game, you're playing it to earn money for the most part. At least that's the phase that we're in. It's a very different sort of incentive, very different set of motivations that brings people to these games. And people in different parts of the world are making a living by playing these games, right? So it's actually it's a very different sort of implicit contract between the people who are creating the games and the people who are playing the games than you have with Call of Duty or something like that. If Call of Duty has a bug, or if you can't connect to a server, or you can't play with your friends, like sure you'll be bummed out, but you're not actually losing money. You're not like you know at risk of not putting food on the table because of that issue. But if you're playing a blockchain game, then you are in that situation. So it's a different level of responsibility. So I think it's a different group of people playing the games. It's a different way of thinking when you're building the games. Just the whole space is very different than anything we've seen before.
Is it fair to say that for a lot of gamers in this, I mean, I know with things like World of Warcraft, even though it wasn't based on crypto,
Yeah,
people were still getting up in the morning and going to work in World of Warcraft.
yeah.
So what's different about earning money with crypto compared to earning money by? I'm not sure. I'm not even sure what people did in World of Warcraft to earn money. But
They
how would it
farmed
be
gold,
different?
or they farmed gold, and they farmed items, and then they sold them sort of off of either on in-game marketplaces, but usually you didn't sell them on in-game marketplaces for real money, but you could sell them on eBay and stuff like that, in order for an exchange of cash, in order to make a transfer of resources in game. So yeah, World of Warcraft, Eve Online. Before that, even in EverQuest, this was happening. In like Valve games like Team Fortress 2, this was happening with hats. So this has been happening in games long before anything like a blockchain existed. Well, not very long before anything like a blockchain existed, but it's been happening in games before, even before 2008. But I think the big difference is when it was happening, when it with the economic activity you're seeing in games like World of Warcraft or games like Eve Online, or games like Team Fortress 2, all of those activities are sort of like they live or die at the whim of the game publisher. If the game publisher decided that they want to shut down those kinds of markets, or they wanted to shut down those kinds of exchanges, they could. The big difference between that and with blockchain games is that in blockchain games there is really no shutting down of this kind of activity, because when you own an asset in a blockchain game, as long as that asset is represented on the blockchain, that's like total ownership of that asset, and you can really do whatever you want with it, and you can exchange it for money if you want. And there's really I mean, people can try to, games can try to stop you, but that's also the beautiful thing about the blockchain is that, someone, a game publisher or game creator who was too heavy-handed with whatever control they do have on the blockchain, people could just take those assets and use them in a different game experience that was built for the same community, right? Like a third party could come and build an engaging game experience for holders of assets in the game that competed with it. And so basically it's just a complete inversion of control where it's no longer the game publisher or the game creator that has control over the experience. They're just sort of the de facto creators of the experience, but that doesn't mean that other people can't come and participate in the economy and create entertaining experiences for people who have those assets and sort of participate in the economy as creators. It opens it up to everyone else, and the people who own the assets, they have complete. They get to decide what they're doing with their in-game, with their game assets, basically with their NFTs and ERC20s and so on.
Is it fair to say though, if someone, for example, buys sand in Sandbox, as it is today, if they take that sand out, they could sell it out. They could sell it on a public market, like on Coinbase or wherever, but they couldn't use it in a different game environment. But you're saying that other, like I think for Sandbox and Axie Infinity at the moment, stuff you buy in there is tied to the game. But are you saying that other people or other companies could come along and say, use your Sandbox items in our game?
Exactly. Okay. So basically, like if I wanted to make a game and I wanted to sort of appeal to the same people who have bought into Sandbox with sand, I could say, you might not be able to do much with your sand in Sandbox right now, but I've built this really cool game experience where you can use your sand in order to battle enemies or in order to participate in an adventure or something like this. So come and spend your sand over here in order to actually start getting value out of it. And there's nothing that can stop me from doing that because sand exists on the blockchain. It's an ERC20 token. And as long as I've built a game that accepts that ERC20 token as part of my mechanics, who's going to stop me from running my smart contracts, right? They're running on the blockchain.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So you've been going since October last year, and you've already had over $1 billion transacted. That's quite fast growth. So are there a lot of companies in the space of what you're doing, or are you one of the pioneers?
I don't know anybody else who's doing what we're doing with game economies. I mean, traditionally, this kind of economic activity has been sort of restricted to governments and central banks and, the Federal Reserve and basically groups like that. Because economies were, until now, economies have been, it's the economy for this country or the economy for that country. But now a lot of the principles that you see when you're managing an economy for a blockchain project, like for example, a blockchain game, they reflect the same things that someone does when they're managing the economy for a country. It sort of operates at a large enough scale where I think in economics they call it like the fallacy of composition. What works well when you're managing the economy of your family, like you as someone who's managing your personal wealth is not going to work well at the level of the country, and even for companies, it's not necessarily true. For a private institution, let's say you're making $1 billion a year or something, it's not the case necessarily that what would work well for a country would work well for you managing the wealth of your private company. But with the blockchain economies, with these game economies, you're hitting the scale where actually you need to start thinking about policy of how do I improve the health of my economy? How do I make sure that people aren't hoarding wealth so that I have this deflationary dynamic on my currency? These kinds of things. These are the things that people who set national economic policy generally think about. So that's sort of where we're taking our inspiration from. But there are also new things that come about by operating on the blockchain that genuinely I think nobody has thought about or experienced before, or very few people have thought about. I'm sure I know that EVE Online has an economist, or and I know that Valve had a chief economist. So I know that gaming companies have been thinking about these things for at least a decade. No more than 2 decades, but at least a decade. But yeah, there's not. I don't know of any company that's doing exactly the kind of things that we're doing right now.
Okay. So at the moment you're managing a lot of the crypto stuff, and you put it into an API, and you're doing all of the smart stuff in the back end. And what's your kind of plans to go forward? Where do you see the future of this, of what you're going to do? Where do you see that going?
Um, right now we're just sort of building out our product around this use case where people who are designing games, they need to have mechanisms. They need to be able to drop economic mechanisms in place to improve the health of their economies, and they need to secure their economies because
Mm.
um, with the amount of transaction volume that we're dealing with, we see like a lot of attacks on the economies that we participate in,
When
and
you say a
stopping
lot of
that.
attacks, how much is a lot? Is that daily or?
Yeah. I mean, constantly. So anytime you deploy a smart contract, as long as that smart contract has been published openly, people are going to be looking for vulnerabilities in the smart
Oh,
contract.
really?
And
Oh, wow.
yeah, 100%. And so we
Is that
monitor
because
like,
they can get free Ethereum or
yeah,
Ethereum
exactly,
tokens?
exactly. I mean, the right way to think about this is, I think the way that retail stores think about like, their inventory is that, you incur a certain risk. The more inventory you put in your stores, you incur a certain risk of losing
Mm,
inventory to
mm,
theft and shoplifting and stuff like
mm,
that. The same thing happens with in-game economies. The more mechanisms and the more smart contracts and the more
mm,
different ways people have of interacting with your economies, the more opportunities they're going to find to sort of like break the mechanics of your economy, especially right now because we're on a completely sort of uncharted frontier, right? Like how
mm,
many people have built economies that look like this, which can interact with real economies, where like
mm,
people are actually earning their daily living by playing these games.
mm,
This is like really unknown territory, at least for everyone that I've spoken with and everyone that I work with. We're figuring it out as we go.
mm.
And so, yeah, this idea of, uh, you know, total security or,
Okay,
like
so
having something be completely locked down, I think is actually damaging for people who are building these kinds of economies. And
mm,
so, yeah, we're constantly monitoring the economies. We're looking for ways that people are trying to exploit mechanics inside an economy and like we have different strategies of dealing with that. Like there are some activities that are good for an economy that increase the health of the economy, in which
mm,
case like those are activities that you want to support. Like people doing arbitrage across decentralized exchanges or people doing
mm,
arbitrage across different marketplaces. That's generally something good. That's not exploitative in a damaging way. It's something that you want to encourage people to do. But then there are people who are like trying to abuse vulnerabilities either in like the mechanics of how different in the interactions between different mechanics, or exploit vulnerabilities in the implementation of particular mechanics, which we're also constantly monitoring for. So yeah, that security is piece is really important. And then just building more mechanisms, like we're constantly running experiments about what can we deploy into economies that sort of improve participation, that stimulate like activity in those economies and things like that. For example, one thing that we discovered is that people who are playing NFT games,
mm,
basically there are two types of users. For blockchain games. So one of them is like very financially savvy, and they're really approaching this more from like a financial point of view
mm,
rather than a game point of view. And the other group of users is more game savvy, and they're not so familiar with like the financial mechanisms available to them on the blockchain, but they really understand games very well. These might
mm,
be um, the kinds of people who have played like other games, maybe who have played role-playing games like World of Warcraft before, run successful guilds or been part of successful guilds, and now they want to bring their expertise to the blockchain
mm,
in order to make the most of those skills
mm,
in terms of real value. And so we created a way for us to turn basically NFT marketplaces into ERC20 marketplaces, and that was very successful.
mm,
And that's something that we're building out on. So right now we're very much in the phase where we're discovering every week. We're discovering like new mechanisms
mm,
that can sort of stimulate activity in an economy,
mm,
improve the health of an economy, secure an economy better, things like that. So we're very much in a discovery phase right now, and it's very enjoyable, first of all, to be in
mm,
a discovery phase, and that's what we're focused on at the moment. I think the way that this grows is we've already seen that by us participating in an economy, we can improve the value, like just improve the total value of
mm,
the dollar value of that economy by
mm,
like 5 to 10 times what it was, just because we give players an outlet for their interest in like a
mm,
game, right? So right now, most blockchain games are in the phase where they're just building up their experiences.
mm,
They're just starting to build things out,
mm,
and being one of the first projects to give players a way to actually turn their interest into like real activity is a pretty big competitive edge compared to other games. And so our participation in those economies, the mechanisms that we dropped in really, really improve sort of the value of those economies. And so, yeah, we're just sort of in this process where we're discovering, first of all of the different things that we can do, not limited by, not limiting our imaginations, not thinking like, okay, we need to do things the way that they need to look like in the way that they look like in regular economies, because on the blockchain, a lot more things are possible. And then, yeah, just figuring out different ways that we can increase the value of the economies that we participate in, because that helps our customers and it helps us quite a lot as well. So that's, yeah, that's where we are. And yeah.
So security, you said, is basically a big part of what you do. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you make? I guess I've got two questions. One is, how do you make sure that the companies you deal with don't try and shut off and run off with the end user's money as well? That's one part.
We only participate. So right now, we're sort of in this like very fortunate position where we can choose our customers. We don't participate in projects that we don't deem to be credible, and we do quite serious vetting of projects that we choose to engage with. And we take a lot of skin in the game as well. Like, it's important for us because like the traditional model for security on the blockchain has been, okay, you hire like some smart contract auditor, they spend like, a week, a month, whatever, something like looking at your smart contracts, and then they leave. And yeah, okay, their skin in the game is that they put their name on an audit, but there hasn't been like much downside for people to do audits, like, for vulnerabilities, when vulnerabilities are discovered. And we don't really like that. We run security operations, and we take our payment partly in cash, but also partly in in-game tokens. And so the value of our—
That was my next question.
Yeah.
So you answered that.
It's really important to us that like, our incentives are aligned with the incentives of our customers. And so the value of our assets as a DAO is sort of tied to how well we can, how healthy we can make the economies that we participate in, and how secure, how well we secure them. And we run security operations very differently. Like, it's not just about smart contract audits. Smart contract audits are just a very, very, very small piece of the whole thing. That's managing security operations. You have a lot more tools at your disposal if you're actively, like, monitoring the health of the security of an ecosystem and fixing issues as they arise. We don't like to talk too openly about those tools because we like to maintain a fog of war around how we perform those operations. It's very important because attackers, if you're too transparent, the attackers know everything about what you're doing and you don't know anything about what they're doing. So we don't talk too openly about those things, but we are running those operations just constantly. And yeah, I think at least in terms of security, like, our operations are world class right now.
Okay. So I think we know a little bit about what your company does and where you are now. But what about yourself? I mean, you didn't just you weren't just born as to build. You weren't born like as a Solidity coder, doing in a gamer. So how did you get here? You can go back as far as you like.
In some sense, I was probably born a gamer. I never really liked to do anything else with my life except play games, and probably the most meaningful relationships I've had in my life have come about through gaming, or through playing games. So my background is, I'm originally a mathematician. So I got a PhD in mathematics in 2013, and I studied like combinatorics and number theory, and actually I spent a lot of time while I was doing my PhD not doing mathematics at all, but playing games. So I was like really an avid backgammon player and a Go player. I like those types of games, like perfect information, like, two player games with backgammon. You have some element of chance, like, those are the kinds of games that I really, really enjoy playing. So around the time that I was finishing my PhD, I decided I didn't really want to do mathematics research for the rest of my life, for many reasons. I wasn't really cut out for it, in the sense that I found it. I found that life like quite boring, and I didn't want to just keep on doing something where, like, a handful of people were interested in what I was doing, and like, you just basically spend the rest of your life in that circle. My grandmother was quite sick. She had a disease like Parkinson's that was misdiagnosed for Parkinson's, and then and I decided I wanted, like, really, help people like her. So basically after I finished my PhD, first I moved home. Home is Thailand, so my family lives in Thailand. I moved back home, to help my mother sort of take care of my grandmother, and it was quite difficult. But then my grandmother passed away in 2013, in the summer of 2013, and I didn't really have anything going on. And in the meantime, I had a friend in Japan that I met through, from playing Go, basically. And he was working on sort of, dynamical systems and algorithms and data science and so on. 1 second, Zubair, my daughter just ran into the room. Do you mind? I'll take her to a mall. Hi. Say hi. I'll be right back. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No worries. Oh, that's nice. She's so cute.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, she wakes up at 7.
We don't even have to cut that. People love to see that when the it's up to you if you. Some people don't want their family members.
I don't mind. I don't mind.
We'll keep that on. All right. But yeah, sorry, go on. So you went to you worked with your friend from Japan.
Yeah, so I moved to Japan. I lived there for almost 2 years. And we developed an algorithm. Actually, it was an algorithm that we were using it.
What year is this, by the way, just to give some context?
2013. I was there from 2013 to 2015.
Okay.
And yeah, we developed an algorithm that we were using for various things. And sort of my interest there was we were using it to diagnose neurodegenerative disorders like Parkinson's disease and so on. Using like basic equipment like accelerometers. We had a Nintendo Wii balance board, these kinds of things. We were using those to do that. Actually, the clinical trials are still underway in Japan for that technique, for that diagnostic technique. But I realized sort of that I didn't want to make a life again as an academic, as a researcher in Japan, like doing that kind of thing. It's generally quite sort of time consuming. It takes a lot of time to bring a product like that to the market, and it's sort of tough being a foreigner in Japan, like trying to do research over there, trying to make it in sort of the academic community over there. So I just moved to Silicon Valley, started a company. It didn't go well. That first time it didn't go well at all because I didn't really know what it took to run a company. But that's how I ended up over here. And then through my time here, I've sort of I've worked at Google. I worked on the TensorFlow team at Google, and I worked on Cloud AI at Google. I've worked at a lot of startups, building AI teams. Before I started Moonstream, I worked at a company called Doc.ai where I led the AI and the blockchain teams, and that was in 2017. And my interest there was like I've sort of been involved in with Ethereum, just doing my own development and building infrastructure and so on since 2016. And so
wow,
that
sort of you were in early. You were in early.
Yeah. Not super early, but early enough. I understand the technology very well. Things ended up like quite well for me. But yeah, so that's sort of when I got involved. And yeah, so then I joined Doc.ai. At some point, it's like pretty clear to me that I have certain things that I want to build, and I prefer to just to be building them myself rather than working for someone else. And so I started this company.
Are you saying you're a bad employee like me?
I'm a terrible employee. I'm a good employee for probably like a year, and then I get bored, or I want to do my own thing, and then I'm not a good employee. So yeah. So I started Moonstream, and then basically, the core of our technology is built on just an automated ontology for software. So we write static analyzers and we write code generators, and basically like our sort of real advantage, which most people don't understand because most people don't understand the technology behind it, is that we're able to generate programs much faster than like a human being can generate programs, because we have tools that understand software really well, that understand different systems really well automatically. And then we have code generators sort of that built on those tools, which sort of generate software using that understanding. So
did you start Moonstream? Was it supposed to be for crypto, or you started?
No, it wasn't supposed to be for crypto. It was just general.
It was supposed to be like a AI code generation thing.
Yeah, like a knowledge base, like an automated knowledge base where you can
pull like the old 4GL AI systems.
Yeah. And it was we had some decent traction. We had traction with like open source projects. Open source projects were using our tooling to The use case that worked really well over there was they were using our knowledge base to like pull analytics about how users were using their libraries and so on, their command line tools, things like that. But it was pretty hard for us to make money on that because for the most part, we got a lot of teams using the software, but even $50 a month is like a pretty tough ask if you're running like an open source project that's not like, like a startup or something, not super commercial. But I run my own Ethereum nodes, and so I was like, okay, let's instrument the Ethereum nodes with this software. And so I did that, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, right? Like I can get information from the transaction pool very easily. I can get information from like the actual blockchain very easily. I can join the information together. It makes analysis super easy. So we started building it in July of last year. And then we launched in September as a full product. And at that point, we were really focusing on the analytics angle, right? Where like, let's say that you're running like some sort of an on-chain project and you want to understand how people are using your smart contracts, you can sort of set up analytics for smart contracts. Again, we have a code generator where you just sort of point it at your smart contract and it'll tell you like, like what type of analytics. It just generates a crawler for your smart contract.
So could you do stuff like you could just point at a smart contract address and you generate the ABI and you could even interact with it automatically?
Exactly. So actually that's open source. So that's called Moonworm. If you check out our, I can send you a link to it in chat. 1 second. It's a superpower being able to use this tool. Let me send it to you.
Because that's something which I need for a project I'm doing actually is to...
Yeah, you should check it out. Most of our tooling is Python based, but I highly recommend Moonworm. I mean, it makes it like so much easier to do everything else that we do because we have that tool. Basically, we can do things. It does in basically milliseconds what takes people like days or weeks to do. So that's really like quite useful to have. But yeah, so we started off with analytics, and then one of our first customers was a blockchain game, and then sort of our relationship with them just sort of grew and grew as they became successful and we became successful, and now we're working with like multiple gaming projects to help them sort of do the same things that we sort of managing economies and so on.
But did you think it was a conscious decision to move into blockchain games, or was it like because this customer came along and said we could do this, that you said, oh, this could be a market? How did you, what was the moment you discovered that it was a market?
There's always like the sort of universe of possibilities open to you, right? And then like as your business develops, like when you're really early on, like you can do a lot of different things, and then like you sort of narrow down your focus as you move further and further along. So blockchain gaming was always something that we had in our minds as a thing that we wanted to target, and we understood like what kind of value we could bring over there because of our code generators and because of the capabilities of our product. But in some sense, it was fortuitous as well, right? Because at the same time, we were talking to like hedge funds. At the same time, we were talking to just data vendors and stuff like that who wanted to use our API to serve data to third parties. So we had like a few different sort of avenues that we could have focused on. This was the one that we're most interested in because we are all gamers. Like the team is all people who really love to play games, and like that's sort of our ethos. So this was the one that we were most interested in, and because of interest and because of growth, this is the one that we are focusing on now.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So that's an interesting story about how you got here. So all the way from PhD in mathematics, and trying to cure diseases. That's amazing. And also, what was interesting there as well was you were trying to find a way to detect Parkinson's and other diseases based on how people could balance on a board.
Yeah.
Instead of having to inject them with a million different chemicals.
Well, I mean, those diseases all manifest themselves through like changes in gait. So because once you have like that kind of neural degeneration, even the way that doctors diagnose those diseases is by studying your gait. But the problem is that at least at that time, so this was before like sort of neural.
What was that word you said? What were they studying?
What was who studying?
They were studying
gait, how people move. So basically, like just patterns of movement and how people walk and things like that. But this was before like computer vision. Before like you could run like a large computer vision model like on your phone and do things. I think now a lot of people who are doing the same things that we did back then are actually doing them, instead of using like these balance boards and accelerometers and
Mm,
gyroscopes. I think the sort of preferred way to do things right now is by using a camera on a smartphone and detecting like patterns of movement
mm,
from the visual data rather than
mm,
from sort of,
mm,
although I mean, I think accelerometers and gyroscopes on the phone, like, each phone should have like maybe two accelerometers and two gyroscopes, like, a modern smartphone.
mm.
There's also a wealth of sensor information available there. I don't know how much people are using that sensor
Mm.
information.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, okay, so I think I understand a lot about Moonstream now, how you've got here. So let me ask you, what do you think about the general crypto industry and where it's headed, and what do you like and what don't you like? This would be interesting to hear because you're so deeply involved.
Well, I think the thing that I don't like is probably the thing that most people don't like is just the number of scams sort of out there right now. And just the the biggest difficulty I think someone has right now if they want to participate in any sort of blockchain activity is understanding which projects are worthy of participating in and which ones are likely to either fizzle out or be scams. And probably the people who are throwing their money in right now don't have um, enough technical expertise to figure it out based on code. And so they rely on like, word of mouth and things like that. And this creates like these sort of bubbles, and this creates like this kind of like uncontrollable hype that like, exaggerates sort of the effects of like, a rug pull or something like that. So that's the thing that I don't like. And I look forward to, some sort of diminished, like in some sense the crashes are actually good because the crashes like they clean the gutters basically, and right now the gutters are pretty full. So that's the thing that I don't like about it. But for me, just the possibilities that the blockchain opens up around like collaboration, what I just like I just at the beginning of the call I was describing to you, I could decide to create a game that took sand as like a currency, as like a cost to enter my experience. And the way that I described it to you was as if like I had an adversarial relationship with Sandbox or something. I wanted to steal like users or steal players away from them, but that's actually not true. And I think what's very likely to happen is that people are going to start collaborating on building these kinds of experiences. If you're familiar with the Loot project, I think they're like they were probably the first sort of high profile project that sort of realized the possibilities of like shared creation of narrative or shared creation of content, where they just built a community and they lined up like people who would create for that community, and like the relationship was transparent to everyone and the upside was shared with everyone. Those kinds of things are really exciting to me because I think this is the first time where we can really say that you know you're not really like the person who's creating like content or the person who's creating a narrative doesn't have full control of that narrative. And the way that like the way to approach that in this new world is like you release the seed of an idea, and then you like invite other people to like grow that seed together with you. For me that's really exciting because we've never had that sort of form of collaboration before, at least that I know of. And it's very exciting to see what people are going to end up doing with it. And you know, for me, this is a much more sustainable model where people can sort of make a living off of their creative works than any model that has existed before. It's much more open to participation. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter who you know. It doesn't matter too much. It still matters who you know, but it doesn't matter as much who you know. It doesn't matter like which publisher you can get in the ear of, or things like that. You can just participate in these communities and sort of spitball and like have ideas and like bring those ideas to the rest of the community and like have things grow organically from there. That's very exciting to me. That's the most exciting thing to me about this whole thing.
But what do you think about, for example, if you look at Web3, which is like this overarching term to describe a lot of this stuff
Mhm.
together. I mean, a lot of people seem to think it's like the anti-Facebook, the anti-Google. But when I think about it, I think logically, Google's probably just going to build a crypto wallet into Chrome, and all of these companies are probably just going to embrace crypto and try and find a way to embed it into their own ecosystem. But maybe that's a pessimistic view. I mean, do you think it's going
I
to be
don't
the
think it's
case?
pessimistic. I think Facebook is doing exactly that right now, right? I mean, like that's exactly how Meta is going to turn out. They're going to try, but the beauty of it is that they don't have the same moats around users, and they don't have the same moats around content that they had in the Web 2 world, because like Facebook's user database is something that lives on Facebook's platform, right? That's something that you or I do not have access to. And let's say that Facebook like messed something up, and they like their users were unhappy with like certain aspect of their product. You or I couldn't go and like make a competing product that that satisfied that particular need for their users, because we don't know who those users are and we don't have a way of acquiring them. If these companies start representing their activities on the blockchain, then that moat suddenly goes away. And now you will know exactly who's using Facebook, as long as they're doing it like on an open blockchain, as long as they're doing it sort of in the open without using any sort of other techniques to hide their usership, which is difficult. I mean, so it may be possible. Mathematically, I don't know if it's possible or not, but certainly right now, it's not something that would be very easy for them to do. It's going to be transparent to us which addresses are using Facebook for X and which addresses are not using Facebook for X. So it's really like opening up their user base to people who can genuinely compete with them and who can provide their user base better value. And that by itself is is completely different than how it was in Web 2.
I mean, but in some ways you could say it's user or data portability. But for example, if just say you had your MetaMask and it had your username and your details about you, and you went and used it to log into Facebook. And then you found another person who you were sending messages to. They probably wouldn't put those messages on the blockchain because people would want them private anyway.
Yeah, they wouldn't put messages on the blockchain. But if you had to use, for example, a Facebook token in order to, like have access to some service, that token transaction would go on the blockchain. So for example, I could pull a list of everybody who's, sort of transacted on the Facebook platform with Facebook tokens.
Okay, so they might make it, so that they just keep minting new tokens every time something happens. And okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, and what do you think about NFTs and where they're going? And I mean, I personally see NFTs like this art thing is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, how do you see them and where they're going?
The reason we like NFT games, by the way, is because the games give utility to the NFTs. I actually have a lot of trouble understanding art NFTs because like the success of those projects is mostly based on like ability to hype things up rather than the ability to execute on any sort of roadmap or technical vision or something like that. So I try not to participate in art NFTs for the most part, just because I don't understand them very well. But I understand the gaming ones very well, and games provide utility for NFTs, right? The way that I think of NFTs, gaming NFTs, is that the gaming, and like if you buy an NFT that's part of a blockchain game, you're basically buying a future on the value of like the game that they'll be participating in, right? So that's those kinds of things are exciting for me. We spend a lot of time thinking about how we can quantify the utility of an NFT just from on-chain data. We keep publishing research about that as well. So I see a lot of potential with NFTs. I mean, an NFT is just a mechanism, right? It's a mechanism for doing X. Like ENS uses the NFTs as a mechanism for registering like a domain, an ENS domain, right? Gaming NFTs use NFTs as a mechanism for participating in like a game experience. So I don't think of the NFTs as like a space by itself, but for me, blockchain gaming is a very exciting space. And other projects are also using NFTs in pretty interesting ways. Like, Uniswap V3, they're using NFTs to represent like your position as a liquidity provider, and then you can make that position tradable. So all of those things are pretty exciting to me. And just the mechanism of an NFT or the mechanism of an ERC1155 token, that's like a standard that we've been making very good use of ourselves. Those things are the possibilities that they open up technologically are like quite exciting for me.
Okay. And what about DAOs? I mean, I guess having an in-game economy is a little bit of it is a DAO in a way. I mean, for me, the exciting part of DAOs is the ability to spin up a company maybe for half a day and then close it down.
Yeah. The ability, I think also the transparency of policy, right? So it depends on the extent to which your DAO is a DAO. Like a lot of DAOs are just a bunch of people on Discord, like, making decisions together or something, and which is perfectly fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But the real vision is ultimately that, like, some non-trivial proportion of your policy is actually going to be represented on chain using smart contracts, and people will get to vote. And there's that level of transparency. That's super exciting to me. And it's also really important because, like, ultimately participation in a blockchain economy really depends on the trust of the participants to like with to everyone else who's participating, and to the nominal managers of that economy, and I think DAOs are going to have a very important role to play over there, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If you look at, like, for example, Web3 today, I mean, I would say it's probably like 10 million people. How many people would you say are participating today?
Tens of millions, maybe closer to 100 million. It depends on what you mean by participation. Yeah.
Like have MetaMask and use it and can approve a track.
Or have some wallet. Like I know we had numbers like with even blockchain.com wallets or something. It's closer to 100 million. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize that. I'd heard like 10 million and I didn't know. So do you think that it will become billions? And by when do you think we'll hit, like, say, well, firstly, do you think we will hit how many web users are there in the world? I have no idea. Say,
I mean, I think it's like 3-4 billion, something like this, okay, right? Like people who are using Facebook on their mobile phones in, like, Burma or something. Yeah, it's very high.
Okay, so do you think wallets will get easy enough that we will, like, maybe they'll get integrated with Google and Gmail? Do you think we will hit 4 billion wallets at some point, which is a 40 times increase?
I don't think it will happen soon. And I think a lot of it initially is going to happen through centralized exchanges. But I expect in the next 5 years, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in 5 years, what do you think will have?
Let's say in 5 years, I expect us to hit like maybe 1 billion or 2 billion users, let's say, something like that.
It's still a lot.
Yeah.
But and what do you think will it's going to change in people's everyday lives? The fact that we have super Web3 or whatever,
I think the way people earn money is going to change. The way that people earn money and the way that people think about money are both going to change very drastically.
Are you talking about it here in the West or
anywhere in the world? I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen everywhere, and it's going to be different in the West. The way that it changes in the West is going to be different. It's going to be different than the way that it changes, let's say in Thailand, or the way that it changes in, like, Indonesia, or the way that it changes in Japan. Everyone is going to have a different take on it, but it is going to change for everybody in some way. And we're actually already seeing that. I don't know if you had spent any time on Wall Street, that's subreddit, but, like, already you can see that people there think about money very differently than the way, like, I don't know, I assume that we're of a similar generation, but, like, people there think about money differently than the way that we think about money, that at least in the way that I think about money. And participating there has made me start changing the way that I think about money as well. So it's just coming. Yeah.
So do you think people will still be doing 9-to-5 jobs, or do you think people are going to just log in with MetaMask, do a job, and escape?
Yeah, I hope that it's going to be like that. But there's some things that won't go away so easily, right? Like a manufacturing job, or, like, working in a mine or something like that. At some point, you really need people there, like, doing things with their bodies. Those jobs aren't going to go away. We still require, like, those commodities. I hope those jobs will get paid better. But yeah, that's yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so I think that's everything from me that I've wanted to ask you. Is there any stuff you'd like to finish off with about your company, where people can find you, or any closing thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I'll tell you a bit about Moonstream. So one of our principles is that we really like to do everything that we can in open source. So I'll send you some links to there, a link to our GitHub. We also carry most of our work out in the open on Discord. So if you join our Discord, like, we're happy to talk to you, and we're happy to even help people get started, like, on their Web3 journeys, if they're developers, if they're programmers. Now that we're running security operations, there is some stuff that we have to sort of keep hidden, that we have to keep private. That's just sort of our responsibility to our users. But for the most part, we try to be as transparent and as open as we can be. And so, yeah, if anybody's interested in learning more about Moonstream or just wants to get more involved in Web3 or get involved in gaming, you can join our community, join us on Discord, and we're happy to help.
I can post that all in the show notes. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I'll send you the links. Yeah.
Okay, so it's been very educational once more, for me. So thanks for your time, and yeah, I hope it all goes well, and I'm going to follow your company and follow the progress, and
Thanks,
see how
Zubair.
it goes.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, and good luck to you as well. And let's join our Discord. We can keep talking.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks.
Bye.